Welcome to the Filmmakers 412 podcast. I'm your host, Michael Ray. Today's guest is editor and filmmaker Travis Culley. Travis has worked on 3 feature films, 20 short films, and 1 mini documentary, and he's won a few Telly Awards to boot. Some of the things that we talk about today include how editing can make you a better filmmaker, negative fill light and lighting in general, and my theory on the ladder of understanding. Here's our interview with Travis Culley. Okay, Travis, thank you for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Sure. Okay, so what do you do when you're not filmmaking?
Oh, when I'm not filmmaking, I'm probably thinking about my next film, No, seriously though, I'm a father. I have a 7-year-old son, and he's a YouTuber. So he keeps me pretty busy with that. He also plays hockey, so I'm a coach, I'm a hockey dad, and I'm an editor. I'm a video editor and a videographer, so I make commercials. And I also do graphic design. So I was not formally trained as a graphic designer, but as a necessity at a couple places I worked at, it kind of goes hand in hand in the marketing world, and it's good to have those tools,
Heck yeah.
So I really like it. I like doing a little bit of both, every once in a while changing it up. The one thing I'm not is a photographer. You'd think that would carry over well, but I get a little frustrated with photography from time to time.
Why is that? I mean, what can't you get?
I don't know. I'm just never really happy with my images. I don't know if it's the shutter speed or and also when it comes to the editing is my favorite process of everything. And just working on a still, I get bored, and you know what I mean. I like to create, and working on a single image for so long, I've never really been able to, you're shooting camera raw and you're sitting there and you're really trying to tweak it, and I'm just like, I'm ready to move on to the next photo already, So I've just never really been that happy. I've gone out on, some photography shoots with some friends, and I watch them work, and a relative of mine, he shoots some stuff at Kennywood, like at least once a year, and his photography skills are just amazing, and he just picked it up when his daughter was born, and just picked up a camera because he wanted to get some photos of his kid, and he called around. He was surprised by the prices, and he had an interest, and he was like, you know what, I might be able to get into this. And then he's blowing me away, with the shots that he's taken, and it really made me want to do it, and I just wasn't as good at it, so.
Yeah. The technology has really changed things a lot. It used to be where you had to be proficient technically to be a good photographer, and that kept a lot of people out of the market just because they had the eye, but they didn't have the technical ability.
Sure, yeah.
And nowadays, the technical ability is like, you don't have to know how to focus, you don't have to know how to expose, you don't have to, you just point the button and shoot. And that's where the true artist eye people
absolutely, yeah,
have come through, and they oftentimes excel. I remember one time, this is back when we were shooting slides, so they'll tell you how long ago, but there was this guy that I knew, and we were at the dark room, which is an old lab. And, so what you do is you go up and get your film that was just developed, and you'd go over and look at them on a big light box. It was like 4 foot long or whatever. So you kind of sometimes share that light box with other people. This guy's name is Jack Wolf. I mean, he's still around. I've always loved his stuff. I'd see it published in Pittsburgh Magazine, and he just has an amazing eye. It's like he can just go in anywhere and come back with art.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. So we're there both at the light table together, and I look over, and his film is effed up. I mean, it is like yellow, and like he goes, I don't know what's wrong. It's like, well, you shot with daylight film under tungsten light, and that's what happens. He's a great photographer for going out and getting stock photography, like images, like, because he has that beautiful, great artistic eye.
Right.
But technically, he sucked bad, So he would never be hired to do that certain kind of work. You know? He's still around. He's still shooting, so he's done pretty well for himself. But with the whole technology changing, it's like now digital cameras. You just change the color temperature. How did you first become interested in filmmaking?
First, it was editing. I started noticing transitions and things like, in Star Wars, I guess, different wipes and stuff like that. But I was about, 15, and I started thinking about it as a career path as an editor. And I was watching Law and Order SVU. And just some of the things that they did in their editing. And I forget the name of the editor for that show at the time, but I did look him up, and I really got interested in the editing process. But as far as becoming a filmmaker, well, in high school, I guess I made some projects. They were like, in English class, they would always offer, a video project was always one of the options you could do versus, maybe writing a paper or whatever else. I had this one teacher in 10th grade who would, every project you were allowed to create a video. And that was always my go-to because it was fun.
Yeah, it's
and
not
to
work.
me, it was a little bit easier. Now, I didn't have any editing equipment, so I was like hooking up 2 VCRs and my camera had a fade button, you know what I mean? So it was pretty rudimentary, but I started kind of there. And then when I went through school, I got into TV and more broadcasting. I went to TV production for school. I didn't do film school. So I worked on a few things. We had a soap opera at college, at the university, and a few other things. But I got into DJing, and I was on the radio there. So
Do you still do that?
no, it turns out I was really bad at it. It was a lot harder, and I loved music too. I'm a musician myself, and I've played in bands, and I just thought that'd be a fun career path. And I had a late night show, and I can't blame it on the hours because I was just bad. I would record myself, and it was a lot harder than I thought. Every time I'd hit that live button and go live, I was panicky, and it never got better for me. But I did enjoy, working with Pro Tools, and the digital editing was just coming in at that time. The school had just gotten a Pro Tools machine. They had just gotten an Avid machine. Instead of I even worked on reel to reel, and even that was fun. Cutting actually on a block, was interesting and fun. And I realized that I just enjoyed the editing process, which was what got me interested in the first place. So I kind of went that route. But it was like I said, it was right when the digital time frame was coming in, and everybody was starting to get some digital equipment. And then I started to realize that I could edit, with a computer at home instead of having to go. Like when I first got out of school, I was still going back to my school and using some of their gear because I didn't have a machine to edit,
Right.
And it took a little while to find a job in that career. I didn't do an internship, and to find work, I would volunteer and do some projects. And I did a commercial for a girlfriend of mine who had a family business, and started plugging away that way, So, but when I was about 12 years ago, I started noticing a lot of the short film festival competitions locally, and that really got me interested in filmmaking again and doing it myself.
So at that time, you really weren't aware of the community of filmmakers around here?
Not exactly. No, I wasn't. I wasn't. It wasn't until I was online, and I would see ads on Craigslist, or I wasn't on Facebook at the time either. But I started seeing job postings on Craigslist, and that's how I first got involved with indie film. I saw a posting for a guy that was making a short film, and he needed some crew help. And the guy's name was Joe Giacobello, I believe, and he was working on a film. And I reached out to him through Craigslist, and I found out that he was looking for a location for a radio studio, something that could work in a studio. And I was like, well, we could go. I went to Cal U, and I was like, we could probably get in there at the radio station there. I said, but I have a relative that works at a radio station as well. I said, I can reach out to him, And I reached out to him, and he's like, yeah. He's like, I usually go in on Saturdays and get some extra work done. You guys can come in. How long is it going to take? And went in there, and the guy let me.
That didn't scare him away because how long it's going to take really is a lot longer than people think.
It was a pretty short scene, Okay. It was like we hung one light, and maybe it was 2 lights. I think we had a backlight and like a key light, and that was about it. And just a camera, handheld, and then the talent was just one person. He was on the radio, and we actually had the guy that let us in. It was the DJ. We actually had him record a VO while we were there, just on the fly, and it worked out really well. He actually let me run camera. I was kind of just gonna be a production assistant at first, but he actually let me run camera and shoot the scene, just to give it a shot.
What did he do? He was just directing.
Yeah, but he was also in it. He acts in his own, but he wasn't in the scene. We had a talent come in for the scene to play the DJ, and so he ran camera for several takes, and then he handed it over to me, and I remember getting really nervous. I was like kind of shaking because I felt the pressure of it, because like this is this guy's film and he's letting me. But it was cool. He already had it. He was probably happy with it, but it was nice of him to hand the camera over and give a rookie a shot, and shortly after that, I discovered this local film festival that was, well, wasn't
So
local to
wait,
Pittsburgh.
Did
Oh,
he use any of your footage?
I never saw the film.
He probably didn't even have a
I
chip in the camera. He probably didn't even have a chip in the
I
camera.
don't know. I was on vacation during the premiere, and I never saw the film. And I recently added it to my watch list on Amazon, and I plan to watch it. And
Oh,
I
wow.
just haven't found the time. It's an older film, you know. It was 12 years ago. So, but I've always been curious about it. You know what I mean? I wanted to get my hands on a DVD a while ago, and I just never have. You know. So.
Yeah.
But I did reach out to him like a couple years afterwards, and I sent an email, but that email was no longer in service, so he must have switched emails. But I'm sure I could find him and watch it if I wanted to. So I really don't know. But it got me back into the indie scene and the filmmaking. And I was just going to say that I just happened upon an ad for a film festival, short film festival. It was like 10 to 30-minute short films. And I saw the deadline, and it was like 2 weeks away. And I was like, oh, I can make a film in 2 weeks. So I went to work. This was my first go of it. And I just made a little comedy about a friend of mine. And I learned a lot that, like, it's not good, you know, but it got accepted, you know, not to the, so they had like a Saturday night showing that was like all the best films. But Friday night they showed some other films. And it was it was in Johnstown, PA. And, but I really had a good time, and I really enjoyed their film festival. They had it at the Friday night was at the Flood Museum, and they have a little theater there where they show a video, you know, and it was really cool. And then the next day, it was at their Discovery Center, which is a really cool place. And they had, you know, they had an MC come in, and then they had a filmmakers meet and greet, and it was just a really cool thing. And
See,
I was
I've never been to one.
oh, you got to go. Like, I really had such a great experience. I went and I spent the night in Johnstown, and I rode the incline to the top of the hill, and I had dinner at this really cool restaurant. And Johnstown's not a great place, you know, but I had a great experience, and it really showed that it can be a good place. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of a repressed area, but you know, there's a lot of art there, and there's a lot of people that really work hard to keep it that way, you know. And I saw some good films. There was a couple local filmmakers that they had that made some really nice films, and there was a comedy group out of Pittsburgh called Hustlebot, and they brought a film of theirs, and I watched their film, and I recently was just working on a feature, and those guys were part of it as well.
Oh,
you
really?
know? So yeah, this was just like,
It's a small community. I
it
mean,
is.
It's like,
It is. And it was nice to run into those guys again, because it was like, you know, 10, 12 years ago when I ran into them the first time, and I hadn't seen them since, and I've followed them, you know, and they haven't been doing as much recently, but it seems like they're getting back into it also, you know, so that drive never really goes away. It's a passionate group.
It really is. And I just stumbled upon it like a year and a half ago, and it's really interesting. I mean, that's why I'm doing the podcast.
Right,
really.
right.
It's like, so about how many projects have you worked on over the years?
Well, I've only done about 3 feature films, and they've been great, but they're a big commitment, you know. It worked out well for me to work on one. I got laid off from a job that I had for like 9 years. It was a corporate creative services job where I was the videographer and editor, and that's where I learned my graphic design skills that I was talking about earlier. And we got laid off. The company, you know, folded, and just at that exact moment, an indie film was coming through, and I happened to know the director, and I was all of a sudden available, and I got the key grip on that shoot, you know. And
It was a paid job?
It was a paid job, and we did. I mean, it was aggressive, because I think we shot like 7 pages a day sometimes, you know, long days, you know. And it was in October, and I just remember that it was unseasonably cold in October, you know. So like every shoot was outside, and conditions were just rough, you know. And you know, you just worked with whoever you had too, you know, because the crew wasn't big, so we all wore many hats, you know. But like, just that crew. My best friend from high school became an audio guy also, and he was kind of doing the indie scene also, and he knew some of these guys, and all of a sudden we're all working together, and just like the crew that we had, you know, we were a skeleton crew, but we were good, you know, we were moving along, and we were learning as we went too, though, you know, but we worked well together, and it was great, and we've continued to do projects since.
Cool. So which of your projects are you most proud of?
Well, a couple years ago, I hadn't shot a film in a while, and I was like, I need to shoot a film. And there was a girl that I'd been working with as a friend of my wife's, who was a really gifted writer. And I said to her, I said, I want to make a short film, just something short, but I want to take my time. Because I've done a lot of 48-hour films, and I've done a lot of, it always seems like, budget and time and money are always an issue, and it's like, I just want to take my time and see what I can create, And so I asked her if she had any ideas on a film, because I hadn't been writing. I hadn't had time to write. I became a father, you know what I mean? And that's pretty time consuming as it is. You know what that's like. So
Yeah.
it was like, I didn't have time to, but I just wanted to shoot, you know what I mean? I wanted to test my skills. And I reached out to her, and she sent back the script. And here she had been sitting on this idea for a while.
What's her background? Is she a filmmaker?
She's not a writer. No.
Oh, she's not?
She works with my wife, and she's just a very creative person. And she had worked on a 48-hour film. She just was interested when, my wife had told her that we do some short films, because we always work on the 48-hour film project. And she's like, that sounds great. I want to do that, So she just had an interest. And I was impressed with her when she came on board for the first 2 48-hour films as one of our writers. And I had a pretty good idea that she could do a pretty good job writing, and I wanted to work with her again. So I asked her.
Is she a writer where she works?
No.
Okay.
She's not. No.
That's funny
they're,
how
they're in social work, So
it's funny how you get an interest and you just go for it. And
Yeah.
You may not be the best. It's like you're going to make a lot of mistakes, but it's like fulfilling a passion. And
Yep.
that's kind of what we're doing too.
Exactly. And that's what I love about indie film, is like there's something real about it. And that's what I don't even watch, any blockbuster movies anymore. Excuse me. And I haven't for years. It's been all about indie film for me.
Really?
Yeah. I got sick of every movie felt the same to me after a while, the same arc, the same, I don't know, the guy gets the girl, and I lost interest in all of those. I wasn't impressed with, I know what their budgets are, and you know what I mean? It's harder for them to impress me, I'm not saying
Right.
that there aren't some good movies and that I don't watch any, but I just became really impressed with what people could do, and the stories that they were telling just seemed authentic and real to me. And that's what I thought she could bring, was a real life, something practical that we could do also. And she came back with this really amazing script. And as I was reading it, I was just visualizing the whole thing, and and we got to work, and we started working on it. And I was working at a very small production company at the time, and it was just an office on a main street. And there was an apartment upstairs that we also rented out, just because we didn't want anybody, we had a green screen room in the back that we didn't want people, tramping around up there. So we rented that space out, but we didn't really use it. So I used it as my set, Well, halfway through production, they decided to move the company to Wexford, and I had to finish my film. So I ended up having to rush it, So there was a few shortcomings, but overall that was probably, the project that I, was happiest with, I forget what the original question was, what you asked.
No, what are you most proud of?
Yeah, proud of it. Yeah, so I was very proud of it, and I've submitted it to a few film festivals. It didn't get in everywhere, Was really hoping to get into the Three Rivers Film Festival with that one.
So what's the name of that?
It's called Josie.
Josie.
Yeah, and it's about a girl who falls through the cracks. No one seems to care. Her mother's an addict, and she just it's all about, she has these hopes and dreams, but she gets stuck in the cycle of addiction, and just ends up pregnant at a young age, and just the struggle, and
So it's feature length?
No, this is just a short film.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just a short film that we worked on.
About how long?
It's only about 11 minutes, maybe, if I recall correctly. So it's short, but I really wanted to pay attention to detail with this one, and learn. Like I said, I hadn't shot anything in a while, so I was kind of anxious to get to work. I had a new camera to work with, and some gear and some tools that I wanted to, because at that production company I was working at, I was mainly just an editor, and I hadn't really shot anything in a while. So
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I've worked on, I don't know, like 30 films so far, but just a day at a time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I'm
yeah,
there
yeah.
for a day.
Right.
They shoot 5 days, whatever. I'm just there usually a day or whatever, maybe 2 days. But one of the things I've noticed is most of them, they're initiated by directors, right? And the director tends to be a big picture person. And oftentimes, I'm not very experienced, and we're all on a learning curve of some point,
Right.
So I don't hold it against anybody, but I find that most of these indie films have really poor production, like little to no lighting.
Yeah. Right.
And, they usually realize that the sound is something they got to master, because that was the first criticism they got on the first film that they did. So they get better sound.
You're absolutely right. That is better sound. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. But then there's sort of the degrees of things that make it a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. So, acting, of course, is hugely important. But like, I've just seen some really bad lighting.
Yeah.
And it's like, it just distracts from me. I mean, I'm into lighting, so maybe that's one of the reasons it affects me the way it does. But like, I just see that as the different, like, these people want to be professional, they want to make it to Hollywood someday.
Right.
But like, and maybe the skills that they show in these will translate to someone that is watching that, sees that skill. But the skills that they're really not displaying is like how to make it look really good.
Yeah.
And I guess it's just that learning curve. I have this theory on photography, and it applies here too. I call it the ladder of understanding. It's like whenever you're on a certain rung of that ladder, you can look down below you at the people with less skill than you have, and you can say you can see, oh, this is what they're doing wrong. This is how they're screwing up.
Right.
But if you look up the ladder to people that are much better than you, you don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right, that you're not. Like, you can't figure that out.
Right.
It's an understanding thing. And they're probably up there looking down at me saying, oh, it's so obvious. And to me, lighting is one of those things that, like, that's the next level.
Yeah,
That
I agree.
you got to beat that. And I mean, I know you're into lighting because we worked on a project together.
Well, yeah, but like you said, audio is the first thing I'll check out. If the audio is not good, I'm checked out from this film. I'm like, I know I'm in for, a crapshoot, and I can't watch it,
Yeah, and you almost know that, like, the rest of it's going to be bad too, because it's like, that's that ladder thing. Like, okay, we got to get the audio right, and then we got to get the acting right, and then we got to get the, you know what I mean? And it's like,
well, the next thing, like you're talking about going up the ladder, the next thing that I was talking about Josie, and the thing that is a little bit wrong with that one is some of the color, from scene to scene. Like, it's not as properly balanced, and I this was a couple years ago, and I didn't have I've started using DaVinci Resolve, and just the control that you have with DaVinci Resolve to be able to balance your shots better is
over
just
what?
amazing.
Like what?
I used to just use the 3-wheel color corrector.
No, I mean, what program before that were you using?
Just whatever color correction was built into whether I was using Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere.
So you think DaVinci's better than Final Cut? Or
I don't use it to edit, just as a color grader. Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
okay.
And I've been working with the other videographer and editor that I work with has really taught me a lot about color correcting and keeping things even, and just how to use how to balance your shot before you even shoot it. You know what I mean? Keeping your exposure even throughout, and throughout your entire production is something that, I didn't always take into consideration, like.
You're the first person I talk to that is a technical person. Like, everybody else is that, they're like a big picture person. And like, I know from working with people that, like most people, it's like, that exposure's close enough.
Yeah, right.
We'll fix it later or whatever. But I worked with PJ.
Yeah.
Not that long ago. Everybody knows PJ.
Yeah.
And like, we were doing these takes. It was indoors, pretty controlled. And he, like, we redid a take. He goes, I just want to change the exposure like a quarter of a stop. And I thought to myself, wow, is that unusual for this? Like, everybody else is like, it's close enough.
Yeah, right.
And he's like doing a retake for a quarter of a stop. And I thought that was really, like, so different. Where I've been on projects where I shouldn't. I won't even. I'll stop the story because who knows? He might be my guest someday. But it was bad.
Yeah,
like the guys didn't know how to use the camera. Literally, didn't know that aperture changed.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty green. Yeah.
I mean, it was like, and I'm so curious to see that video
Right,
because
right.
I want to see what those scenes looked like
Sure.
that were 2.5 stops overexposed.
Yeah.
Like, I want to see how they pulled that back.
Well, I mean, it depends on the camera. Like, you'd be surprised, if you're shooting in some sort of log,
You can get 2 stops back?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they have like
Then why are you
a
so
lot of them
technical?
have 15 stops of dynamic range. A lot of the cameras nowadays.
Then why are
and
you so technical?
even that? You're still going to notice
Something.
Yeah, some things. You
like
know what I
on the
mean, and you
extremes.
really have to know how to fix it too if you do screw up. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's just it's the proper workflow, I guess. And the guy that I work with has really showed me, and he's been critical of me, and it pushes me to get better. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I enjoy that because all I want to do is get better, and I want my stuff to look good. And I see other people shooting stuff, I'm like, why doesn't my stuff look like that?
So do you write too?
I used to. I haven't had the time, but I just wrote a treatment, and I'm pretty excited about it. And I reached out to a local writer.
To fix it?
Well, to develop it.
Okay.
So it's a 7-page treatment, and I don't know that I have the time to do a feature, but it's not going to be a complete short film either because the story needs to develop some.
Right.
And I'm very excited about the possibilities, but I'm an idea guy. I don't like to finish developing. Even some of the scripts or some of the films that I've done and written, they've been more like outline based, and I let the actors kind of, here's what I want to convey,
Oh, that's interesting.
do it your way, because I can't sit down and write a complete script.
Like
You know what I mean?
dialogue, it's like-
Dialogue is a real struggle for me, it never comes across natural, and I've always had to have help with that. And we were supposed to meet up, this was like probably 2 months ago, to work on it and just have that initial meeting and then let him run with it and see what he can come up with, because I really only care about the concept of the film. I don't really care, like even the ending is open, to suggestion. Like, I just want to do a dual timeline.
You just want
narrative.
to cover that topic, basically.
Exactly, yeah, and like the premise is kind of interesting, and I really want to. I don't want to change the premise too much, but I'm open to his suggestions because he's a very talented writer, and I've seen a lot of his work before, and I'm really eager to work with him. I've never even met him. We're Facebook friends,
Right.
but we know a lot of the same people, and someone suggested him, and I reached out to him, and I really want to actually make it happen, but his schedule is crazy. He's busy all the time, and but we had to cancel our meeting because I don't know if I was sick or he was sick, and then the next week something else happened and came up, and we just couldn't connect, and we're like, well, let's make this happen, and we'll reach out to you later,
Right.
But I've been looking at his schedule on Facebook, and he just had a premiere last week at Row House Cinemas, and
Wow.
and I didn't make it there. I thought, I'll go down there, and
Meet
it's
him,
just
yeah.
like, my schedule's crazy busy, and so is his, but I do want to, sometime this spring, make sure I meet with him, and then hopefully maybe next year, over the next year, start casting it, and then shoot it, and I actually think I have a friend who he works at the police department, and he said that his the mayor of the town, Slippery Rock, would love to bring a little film to their town.
Really?
And so he's like, you'd have the support, that you need, and
cool.
we could shoot it here, and I'm like, oh man, to get something like that, and get the support of a small town. One of the features I worked on, we shot in Elwood City, and we had a lot of support from the community there, and that's really what it takes, and it's probably hard to get that in the city here.
Yeah,
you need
it's too
permits
big,
and
yeah.
and stuff like that. And I mean, like you go to a small town, and like people work with you, and it makes things a lot easier. You have
Right.
a lot more possibilities in a smaller town like that.
I've always been really surprised. Have you ever been to a Carnegie Screenwriters meeting?
No, I keep seeing them pop up, and I haven't been to one.
Well, what I don't understand is there are people like you. I mean, writing's sort of like an interest of yours, but it's not your main
Right.
focus. You
No.
want to make films.
I
like
do, yeah.
your main. Well, I mean, I'm like interpreting here
Yeah,
what you're
no.
saying, but to me, it looks as though you want to make films as good as you possibly can. But the writing part of it, you don't really want to be concerned with.
Right.
Like on all, you just like making films.
I do,
Okay?
yeah.
So you need the starting point. Why don't you people just like meet these other people, the screenwriters. It's like that's what they like to do. They don't know how to do the production part.
Right.
So
Yep.
you guys got to get together.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely
and
right.
it blows me away. Like, why hasn't anybody thought of this before?
I know.
Like,
yeah.
because I'll tell you this little story. It like cracked me up. My first meeting I went to, and I'm not a writer. I just want to kind of feel out the community. But I went to the first meeting, and
Okay.
like the first time there was this. Okay, what they do is they hand out scripts and people read it. And there's a few professional actors that go there.
Okay.
So they'll usually grab the scripts and they'll read them. But there's like maybe 25, 30 people there, and the first day, there was this guy that got up, and he was the first one to do a script, and it was like, I mean, I don't want to say it, he was pretty bad. I mean, it was like all this F-bombs dropping here as an action movie, and it was just like, I didn't get it,
Yeah,
Maybe I
right.
don't know how to interpret scripts or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. But then the next one, there's this woman, and she's kind of meek, She got up and said, I have the script about a woman that doesn't have very much money and she has a toothache. And she goes to the dentist and holds him at gunpoint. So I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this is going to be bad. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Is that right?
Oh my God, it was so good. Jen Brown is her name, and we brought her on board for the 48-hour film.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
she's since moved out of town to Washington.
Oh,
but
bummer.
I was so blown away by her writing. It was just it was just so. It
Now,
was
does she write
hilarious.
for a living, or
She
This
does.
is just a passion? Okay, all right.
She does. I think she does.
Yeah.
I should check. But anyways, it was just great. I mean, I really enjoyed that, and I have an interest in writing, but I'm not very good at it, and I've read a few books on it, and it's like just something to learn about because I'll never be a writer like that.
Right.
But okay, let's get back to this. Okay, so you're an editor, but what other roles do you like in productions?
I like the whole process. So yeah, editor first and foremost, probably. Second would be, I do like being around the camera, whether it's, being an AC or the DP. But key grip is a position that I really enjoy, or just gripping in general.
I'm a photographer, so I'm a visual guy. So I was asking myself, like, why do I like this sound thing? It's like so unvisual.
Yeah, true.
So I consider myself a very good lighter. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I've been lighting for like many years now, and
Right.
I'm pretty good at it. I think, at least in my own mind.
Yeah, sure.
But anyways, so sometimes I'll light and do sound, but it gets to be too much.
Yeah.
It gets to be too much. But I prefer sound, and I figured out why is because I'm right there when the action's happening.
Yeah, okay.
Like I'm like 5 feet away from the actor, and they're trying to make you cry, and it's so exciting. Whereas if you're a lighting guy, like you said, your job's over when the action's happening. You're somewhere else doing something else,
right,
and
right.
you lose that reward. So I mean that was my realization. I like being in the action.
Yeah, I get that, but like as far as the whole process of production, like I really enjoy keeping things moving too. Do you know what I mean? Like when you look at, you get your call sheets and you see the shot list or something, and you see how much work you're going to be doing. You know what I mean? I get excited, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be a rough day, but I know that I got to keep moving and keep hustling. And I've worked with you before, and you're a hustler. You know what I mean? And those are the types of people that you need around set. It's great to have someone of your capabilities because you help out with the lighting, and you're knowledgeable in multiple areas. My friend Mitch, he's the same as you. I mean, he's a sound guy. He's pretty good at photography. He doesn't do it professionally. He's an IT guy, but he's very handy on set. He knows cameras. He knows, you know what I mean? He knows lighting, and he always has that extra piece of equipment. And that's what I noticed about working with both of you guys is that I'm like, I need a clamp or something to get this light here, and they pull something out of their bag or their truck or off their cart, and you have it. And those are the types of people that I really like working with. And that's the kind of person I've liked to be on set, is capable of doing any job because, I worked at a job for a long time where I was just, it was just just me going out on shoots, you know what I mean? And it's limiting, but at the same sense, you know, you have to be well-rounded to be able to do that, you know? So any part of the production process, I'm happy to be involved with, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause
Yeah, to me, it's just not as gratifying to be not in. Like,
Yeah.
if you're a camera guy, you're right there. It's like, it's so there at the
Right.
moment. Whereas, like, I don't know. I think it's gratifying too to look back at the movie and see, wow, that lighting of that scene I
Yeah.
did, sweet.
Yeah,
You
I've
know?
also had the opposite experience where you're like, man, look at the shadows there, you know, and you're like, oh, what was I thinking? You know, how did I let this go? You know, but you learn so much as you go. And I've been on big shoots, like commercial shoots, even here in the city, that, you know, there's 30 people on set and I'm a grip and I'm just lugging C-stands around. And that's not as enjoyable. It's, you know, it's, to me, it wasn't, because you're so
Yeah.
far removed, like you're saying, you know what I mean? Like when I'm, you know, one of 5, 6 grips, you know, and all we're doing is moving lights, and
Yeah, you might as well be like 2 men in a truck kind of thing.
it's
you
pretty
know?
much what you are. And it's just, you know, it takes a little bit of the creativity out of it to me. You
Right,
know what I mean?
exactly.
You're just so far removed from the actual creative process of it. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was grateful for a lot of those opportunities, and you learn a lot. And
Oh,
just
yeah.
seeing a big production is something impressive. And you know, you'll always take away something from each one. But you know, that's what I like about indie film, is just having your hands in so many more opportunities, and you know, just you're just so much more involved, and you know, everybody just wears so many hats on set, you know, and even going back to the 48-hour film project, it's like, you know, everybody's so involved or it doesn't work, you know, like,
Right.
and just, you know, being able to, I don't know, just roll with the changes and on the fly, and there's something really, I don't know, rewarding about it. After you have to almost always question your sanity while you're in the
Right, right.
middle of it.
Well, especially you if you're doing editing too, because
Yeah.
that's where, like, you're going to work all day doing the production and then you're stuck doing the editing after that, whereas the rest of us are sleeping.
Exactly. I made the mistake of shooting, directing, and writing my first 48-hour
You
film.
didn't act in it too?
I had a small role just because I didn't have another guy, but I was just a dead person. And I remember one of my actresses beforehand, I think Lisa DePreach, was like, "You're gonna do all this? You're gonna do all this yourself?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got this." And I was such a beginner. I even was shooting with 2 cameras just to I thought it was going to save time, but when it came time for the edit, it was brutal. You know, you learn a lot. You know.
Did
so.
you time code it?
I didn't time code
Oh.
it. No. And I didn't slate it.
Oh my God.
Like I said, a lot of mistakes were made my
Oh my
first
God.
year, and this was like 10, 12 years ago. And I really struggled, and finally I hit a wall, and I had to go to sleep for a couple hours, and then I slept a little longer than I wanted to, and I was up against the wall. I mean, I got the film submitted. It just wasn't anywhere near as good as it needed to be, you know, and it's you know.
Have you used time code?
I have, yeah. Generally, I don't, you know.
For multiple camera stuff, man, it's like can't beat it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I don't do a lot of multicam stuff, but you know, when I have to, you know, usually there's somebody more knowledgeable than me running the show.
Right,
For any major multicam shoot, like my coworker, he'll put time code on, and we'll run a few multi-camera shoots a year, you know, but he's in charge, so I don't usually run time code. No.
Yeah. I worked on a 48 with my buddy next door here. It's like
Okay.
we wanted to try one. That's why I wasn't with Jesse this year.
Oh, okay.
But we didn't use time code, and I mean, we slated stuff, but it was the morning, the second day, you know, like we shot all Saturday and Sunday. He said he spent 4 hours syncing the film. With Tentacle Sync time code, literally one touch of a button, and that's all done.
Yeah, there's a program called Pluralize also that'll help you out with that, and I kind of rely on that. And even the editing software that you use has some features
Yeah.
for sync also that, and you know, but slating has always worked for me. You know, just find your mark and you know, sync it up manually, but it can get
Yeah.
hectic. You know,
Well,
and that
that-
first 48 I was talking about that I tried to do it all. I was shooting on mini DV tapes back then, so I had to capture everything too.
Oh my
and that's
God.
where I got into a little bit of a mess. Was my bins weren't as clean as they needed to be, and I got a little unorganized. And I spent a lot, like you said, it spent 4 hours syncing, and that was me trying to find the shot, you know, and
That's
put
what
it all
happened.
together. And I lost a lot of time, and it was so hot that year that like I was out in the sun all day that I eventually crashed, and slept like maybe 2-3 hours longer than I wanted to. And then I was scrambling in the morning.
Do you still like 48s?
I do. Yeah. I mean, like I said, every time I'm in it, I'm like, question my sanity, and I'm like, I'm never doing one of these again. But then after it's over, it's so rewarding, and the last couple I've worked with Jesse Hutchins and, now Red Slate Films. And, I think we've come a long way in the last couple of years at like not overshooting and knowing what we need to get, the one thing that like I've taken like a kind of a back seat. Jesse is a director, you know what I mean? And I would say he's probably a better cinematographer than I am, but I'll help in any way that I can, and I think the last one over the summer, I think I did most of the shooting, but he did one of the handheld shots, and he's good,
Oh, it's his thing, handheld. He loves that.
But then the editing came, and, I stayed up late because I wasn't going to be able to sleep until I had a cut that I was happy with. Now, we were over the time limit, but I was finally like, I had to get a couple hours, but I stayed up as late as I possibly could. But then, we had audio issues, so, but you're always going to have something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
see, I mean, I understand how you like the 48 still because of those characteristics you just mentioned, but that's almost the exact opposite of what we were talking about earlier, where, I mean, like I'll still do 48s, don't get me wrong, but I would rather work on a project where you can make it as good as you can.
Yeah.
Like not be like, okay, that's good. It's like set up that light,
Right.
Work on this. And
Well, that's exactly why I wanted to shoot Josie, because I had only been doing 48s or just everything seemed so rushed, But the one thing about the 48 is, it only takes you a weekend and you walk away with having
Right.
a film. And that's
Right.
what keeps me coming back, is that I don't always have the time every year to make sure I work on a film. I'm not always available, and I can't do as much as I want, so at the end of it, it only costs you a weekend, and you walk away with a film.
You walk away with a film, and there's also a built-in film festival with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a community aspect.
Exactly, and it's fun, and I love watching all the other films too.
Oh, there's
and,
some great this last year, the one that won that.
See, I didn't get to go. There's
Oh,
been
man.
several years where I've contributed and then can't make the screenings, just because I play in a band also, and we have gigs on weekends, so it's like I can't always make it to these screenings because these are, these shows are booked months in advance, so I've missed a lot of premieres because of that.
I do like it, and I'll keep doing them, but I'd still like to. I can show somebody and be really proud of.
I know, right? I hear you exactly.
I don't want there to be a weak point here, a weak point there, a weak point there.
Right.
I want this to be like professional.
Yeah.
What would be your dream project to work on?
Dream project to work on, something with a decent sized budget would be a dream come true. No, honestly, like I would put together a dream crew of like everybody that I've loved working with, and all local talent though, and local, crew and talent, but
so
have a budget and see what we could create. Do you know what I
That's
mean? Like,
interesting.
so I would really like to, like, I'm going to butcher his last name, but that David, he's in Straight and Narrow and he's in everything in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I've never worked with him, but I want to, because I wasn't on those shoots with Jesse. What's his last name? Do you?
I don't know how to pronounce it either.
Okay. But you know who I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yes, he's sort of like Brian Saponis. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, they're everywhere together.
They're everywhere
many times.
together, exactly. So I mean, just the little network that's right in Pittsburgh, I would love to really work with, and like somehow, if somebody pitched a really good idea and somehow it got backed, that would just be ideal for me, because I've seen what what the local community has been able to create, and I think it's as good as any of the things you see on Netflix and Amazon Prime. I mean, it's on par. It's anything, we could really create something big too, I think.
What role in that team would you want to play?
It's a good question. That's a really good question, because I like doing so many different things. If I had to only select one, I guess I would.
With a budget, you only had to do one thing. You wouldn't have to wear all those damn hats.
I like wearing the hats. I guess I would want to edit. I like that.
You wouldn't even have to be there for the shoot.
I know, but I would want to be, because I think, you have to shoot like an editor. I really think that way. Like, I think being an editor has made me a better shooter. Like I know sometimes it might not, because I'm always asking like Jesse or whoever's shoot I'm on, like, how are we getting to this scene? What's the edit? And
Right.
maybe sometimes, but sometimes it's up to the editor to have that creative process to get you there, and that's my favorite part. And you know what I mean? Just being the editor. I've seen a lot of films that just drag too long, and I used to do it too. I like a scene to breathe, but there's a difference between it dragging and it having that breath. And I think that's where I'd be most, be able to use my skills the most would be in the editing process. And not the color grading and not the finishing, just the edit,
I worked doing sound on this project over the summer, and first time I worked with these people, and I don't know that much about editing. I really don't. And these are great people, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe it's going to work out, maybe it's not. I'm not sure. But anyways, what happened was there was these 3 women sitting around a table talking. They don't stop. I mean, they step on each other's lines. They start talking before the other one stops.
Right.
And I'm thinking to myself, when we're filming this, it's like, thank God I don't have to edit this,
Right.
just from what I learned over the summer.
Yeah,
Because,
exactly.
like, when I looked at the audio track, there were no breaks.
Yeah.
It was just like a 5-minute scene, just no breaks. And I'm wondering, we shot it wide, we shot it tight on all 3 people. I'm just wondering how they're going to edit it together. I think it's going to be really challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, like, I don't know, maybe there's a way of doing it that I didn't know about, because I'm so inexperienced with this stuff.
Yeah, right.
But I was just thinking, from the little I knew from doing my own edits on that film, that, like, oh boy, like, I would hate to do it. But it was just, it flowed so nicely, though.
Yeah.
Together.
That's
like,
the natural part
I
of
could
it,
see
yeah.
them. Honest to God, I could see them throwing all those close-ups away and just going with the wide the whole time. You know what I mean? It's like.
But you could cut in probably the reactions and
Right,
use
right.
some of that. That's where
Okay.
You have to get creative with
See,
the edit
I
process.
didn't know.
Exactly.
I would know
yeah.
about that. But it was. That's probably a really good idea.
Yeah, that's how you'd have to do it. You know what I mean? If it's that bad, or at least hang on somebody's reaction shot before you cut to that, and then maybe you can make a splice in there and make it sound a little more natural in the conversation. Like you said, when there's no breaks, you might be able to cut a couple frames out and cut something out, but like. And you might be able to transition from the close-ups to the far. I mean, you just got to really get creative and,
See, that would have been,
try.
in my opinion, that would have been a great shoot to have multiple cameras.
Yeah,
It's
right.
where you
Okay.
could just use that one audio. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
And that would have worked fine. But it's another continuity kind of thing too, because I don't think they really kept track. Like, it was a pretty long scene. It flowed really well and everything, but. When they're doing a close-up, maybe the one girl's holding her cup here, and the other one, I don't know if she kept track of that stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm curious to see how it's going to cut together.
Yeah.
And there's another guy that I'm thinking of. I really like this guy, and he's kind of new at this stuff too. And he's doing his first film, right? So he is looking for an editor, and has tried 2 or 3 and
Okay.
has been really unhappy, and he's doing it himself now.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's pretty far along. I think he's just putting final touches on it. But I was saying to him that I think you should just do it from the scratch, just you. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if nothing else, you're going to learn a lot.
Sure.
And that's going to make you a better director later.
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
That's what he wants
Absolutely.
to do.
Yeah.
Because there's a ton you learn from editing. If you just hand that off to somebody, I think it's a mistake. I mean, you'll probably come up with a better final film, but you won't have learned anything that'll make you a better filmmaker for next time.
Yeah. Right.
At least that's my opinion.
Yeah. True. So back to this question before we move on. You had mentioned, like, what would be my dream project? So, like, one of the dreams that I've always had is, like, if I won the lottery, I was going to make a movie. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, I don't play the lottery.
That's what I was going to ask next.
But yeah, I mean, that would be the dream, would be to just, I guess, maybe be in charge, actually producer. I would probably hire a director. That would probably be I know directors that I would want. Do you know what I mean? And work together with, and I might want to shoot a couple scenes too, though, just to say that I did, But there's some DPs that I would really love to grab, And my coworker Dave Egger would probably be one of them. You know what I mean? Like, he's good, and Jesse Hutchins I think he's very skilled, and he's just recently said, I'd love to get my hands on on a red camera or something, you know what I mean? I was like, it's not the camera, it's you, like you can make it work, like I've seen him in this guy that I've been working with on this latest feature. I never worked with him before, but I've always seen his work, and he's really good. But I just got I was running sound actually, just because it was a small shoot, and just watching him pull his own focus while he shot, and some really difficult scenarios. And I'm blown away. Like there's a lot of skilled people.
Yeah, that's
locally.
what I've been talking to Jesse about. It's like, you need somebody to pull your focus.
I know. Yeah, right.
Because he's doing too much.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of that comes down to budget, though, because you know what I mean. You have to have a remote follow focus, and you have to have a production monitor, and you have to have a Teradek or something to get the picture to the production monitor, so you're not tethered, because he shoots all handheld. So, right. And I mean, some cameras have some good autofocus, but then you have to have the right camera with the right lens. You lose a little bit of cinematic style if you're going all autofocus. So.
Would you like to be a full-time filmmaker, like a movie maker, as opposed to what you do now?
I would, yeah. I mean, I think most people would probably that are in the commercial realm. I mean, like, commercials annoy people, right? Like, everybody's going streaming now because they don't have to deal with the commercials, right? Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm proud of a lot of the commercials that I make. I've gone from doing car commercials, and some of those can be cheesy, but that's just by nature, And I've been on crews and sets, and have written some that are a little more cinematic, but there are still only 30 seconds, and there's still only so much you can do, and you're still trying to sell something,
Right.
And I really like the, like I said, the indie film, and telling the story. I'm in the stories. I would even if it's documentary, I would rather do that than commercial production. So.
I'd actually like to work on a documentary. That's something I haven't done.
See, I've only ever done a mini documentary, and it was just recently, and I actually won a Telly for it. So it was fun. And it was just a really small little story, and I have an idea to make one, and I've always wanted to, and it's not a small task. There's a lot of hours into it. And there are grants you can get for some documentaries, and I've never really explored that fully, but storytelling is what it's all about, and a good story, you can really get creative with it and be pretty cinematic, and there's a good story everywhere, so.
That's the weak part. I think out of all the indie films that I've seen, like, the story endings are especially a weak point.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some great stories, and then I'm hanging at the end, oh man, that's a little disappointing.
Yeah. Are we just so used to the big finish, and the climax, and the same, like I was saying, that's what gets me into indie film, leaves you to wonder. I kind of like that at times, or make your own assumptions about the ending sometimes. I can sometimes appreciate it, but if it's done well, but at the same sense, I've seen that too. I've noticed that. That's a big part. People want closure to a lot of these stories. I'm open to the idea of leaving it, up for you to interpret. Some endings. I like that at times. That, and I guess the other thing is I watched this indie film recently that was shot in Newcastle, and what I didn't like about it was cinematically it was shot fine, but it seemed like they brought in some actors and they had no rapport, really. Do you know what I mean? There was no, you didn't feel it, and I saw these characters, I've been talking to you and I haven't said Michael at all during this interview. When you're talking to somebody, you don't always say their name, and throughout this film they would say the name of the person, and it became a distraction to me, and it's
that was
probably in the script. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And those are the things that I don't like. It doesn't come across natural, and it's in the script, but it probably shouldn't have been.
What are your strengths as a filmmaker?
Creativity, I guess. I have a lot of ideas, and that comes into play for basically the editing. Still, that's still it's what I've done the most. It's what I'm most confident at in my abilities. But I guess just being able to roll with the punches too. You're sitting in this situation, in this scene, and all of a sudden something's not working out. You got to be able to have a creative solution, and that's something that I've always been able to do. In all situations, is be able to that's something the 48-hour really teaches you too.
Right.
Is this isn't working. Plan B. And you got to be able to go. That's not going to work out in Hollywood, you know what I mean? That's not going to work out on your big budget stuff because they've done the pre-pro. And that's something that we really don't have the time to do in the indie world, you know? It's like, so you got to be able to react quickly and think on your feet, you know? So that's what I bring.
What about weaknesses? What are your weaknesses?
My weaknesses are still, you know, things to learn. You talked about going up that ladder earlier, and, you know, there's still always so much to learn. I guess I get comfortable in certain areas, and I don't want to push myself. I'm afraid to pick up a big camera that's foreign to me. Yeah, they all, you know, kind of work the same, but, you know, like the menus, I'm not as techie as I should be, you know? So the Canon camera lines, you know what I mean? Whether it's a C500, a C100, whatever. I mean, I had all the DSLRs, you know, the T3Is to the 60D to the 5D. To take that step up to a Red, you know, even I've started using like the Sony lines, like the FS7, and now there's an FS9 coming out, and I guess I'm a little bit timid on those. You know, I was supposed to go to NAB here in a couple of weeks, and I shouldn't say that, right? Because this is going to come out later. Right?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, sorry. But you know, like and learn, you know. But I've always been a little bit afraid to go into a shoot without, you know, really knowing that camera, you know, like, you know, picking up a different camera and being able to be confident with it. So I guess confidence would be a weakness sometimes too. You know, I'm confident, you know, on a smaller level, I guess.
If you said you're not comfortable with still photography,
Yeah.
do you think, like, is composition a strength of yours? Do you feel you come up with great compositions?
That's a good question. I feel like I can. I feel like there's a lot of room to grow. Yeah. You know, yeah, I would say probably, yeah.
Do you think you can learn composition, or do you think you either got it or don't got it?
Yeah, I think you can learn. I mean, but I think it comes easier to some people probably, right? I mean, would you agree with that?
I definitely would. That's my opinion on it. Like,
Yeah.
there's that Jack Wolf kind of guy that just has it naturally.
Yeah, and once
then,
you know what to look for, you start to see it a little bit better, you know? So, yeah, I mean...
Rule of thirds and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff, you know... That stuff I get, but you know, you watch some new stuff, and like, you know, even like Better Call Saul, and seeing these wide angle shots and how their, you know, their composition is just, it's different now, and it's really eye catching and pleasing to me. You know what I mean?
And it's one of those things that you probably never would have done. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
Like if I had a camera, it wouldn't have ended up like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
But theirs is better. You know
I know. Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's somewhere like, you know. I'd say I'm somewhere stuck in the middle right now. You know, I haven't pushed it, you know, but at the same sense, you know, I see a lot of compositions I really like. And I think every time you see something that you like, you take it with you a little bit so you can learn as you go, you know, and then it's in your arsenal. I just recently bought a lens kit. I bought a 16 millimeter, and I'm really wanting to do some more wide angle stuff. And it's because of Better Call Saul, you know, and I'm very eager to maybe try to shoot something, you know, and kind of, you know, keeping that in mind. Even just on my phone, I got the iPhone 11 Pro, and I'm taking a lot of wide angle pictures because it has that feature now, you know what I mean? But it's all just for, you know, to keep composition in mind and do something different with it, you know what I mean? Because, you know, for so long I was just limited with, you know, I had a 50 and a, you know, variable, you know, a lens, a zoom lens, you know, that was like a 24 to 105, you know, but, you know, you get a lens kit and you really start to pay a little bit more attention to, you know, your composition and what scene requires, you know, what lens, you know, and that's the fun part.
I think a lot of creatives, no matter what field is, their style is really dictated by their equipment. Yeah. For years, I had a look for food photography, and it was based on this light over here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Okay, sure,
like,
yeah.
That's why it looked like that.
Right.
But if I didn't have that light, it wouldn't look like that.
Well, you're exactly right. My coworkers, like the one thing he pointed out, he's like, sometimes you got a negative fill, you know, and he's really big into the negative filling for his lighting, and he's very technically sound, and that's where I'm learning so much, and I realize how technically off I was on so many things, you know what I mean? And he's down to a T. I mean, he's really talented. He's a film guy, you know. He went to film school in Chicago, you know, and he's been working where I work now for like 15 years, and he's, you know, you can't find many flaws in his work. You know what I mean? Like he takes the time and he does it right. And he's really teaching me, you know, an awful lot, you know, and pushing me to be better. And I'm seeing the results, you know? But yeah, it's like, you know, just maybe flagging off here or, you know, putting a silk here and And, you know, like he's very, you know, you got to pay attention to your skin tones, you know, you got to get that color right, you know, and that's where those little details, you know, they all add up. And, you know, that's why everything that he does, you can see, you know, that it's pretty flawless, you know. I mean, he'll find faults with it, but, you know, he's up higher on that ladder that you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a skill that so many local guys could really use a lot. Like you see so many of these films where the lighting is just available, right?
Yeah.
It's flat. You can't bring, you know, it's like they don't have lights to bring in, but
Right.
you can bring in a black cloth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah.
What I do when I go on location for still stuff, and it's really quick and easy, is I have these tent poles, and you can get them at like Cabela's, right?
Okay.
They're just replacement tent poles.
Yeah.
And you put them together, and you stick them in a knuckle of a C-stand, or, you know, you can either use a super clamp.
That's a great idea. I'm
And
going to do
so
that.
it's just 6 feet long, and then you just get the black material, which you can get at B&H for, you know, $50 or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, just, you know, as long as the wind's not blowing, you're fine.
Yeah, right,
If the wind's
right.
blowing, you're screwed.
Yeah, sure.
But most
That's
of the
good
time,
to have, though. Yeah.
Oh, most of the time you want to do that inside. So if you're doing the close-up of that person, and it's really flat, crappy light,
Yep.
bring that negative fill in, all of a sudden you have some shape.
Yeah. See, like we have, you know, these 4x4 floppy, you know, but they don't fit in the car or the van. You know what I mean? So it's like that would be a great little, you know, rig to have, you know, and just you throw those tent poles, they fold up, you know, and get the cloth, you know. But yeah, exactly. Like, you know, you got to think about lighting in layers, you know, and that's where, you know, my growth has come recently.
Yeah, you sound more sophisticated than most people I know.
Well, yeah, and it's from working with Dave lately and him pointing things out to me, and like one time where he just threw this light up in a stairwell and just put a little sliver. He called it a little sliver of light, and he wanted the barn doors closed, and he just wanted it to come through like it was coming through a light. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or through a door window or something. You know what I mean? And it really made the background look.
Oh yeah,
so much more interesting. You know,
right,
and
if not,
it gave it that
just
feel. And some of the stuff I used to do, like you said, a lot of it's opportunity too. And I only had like a 3-piece light kit. I'd be out and I would shoot things, and like the background would be dark, and it would drive me nuts, you know, and I didn't really even know why, you know. It's that I didn't have enough light, you know, or it just wasn't using the light properly. I could have maybe opened up a blind in the background, you know, or whatever it might be, or throw up a little light in the background underneath something, but maybe I didn't have that light, you know. So
many people, like when they're just learning lighting, they think they need enough light. It's not about enough light.
Right,
it's about where you put that light and how you control it.
That's all you do is shape light. You know, that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing out there.
And I think that's the next step up for all these people on that ladder we talked about earlier.
Right.
They just don't get that. You know, like I see, like I'm just thinking of this scene I was watching yesterday on YouTube. It was flat light, white wall in the background. It was so bad. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just, I don't know, but that's pet peeve kind of thing.
Well, I remember in college, they had all the people in TV production also take like theater stage lighting just to learn a little bit more about lighting. And I'm sure you could get into that and really dive into that in colors for mood and stuff. And I'm still not there yet, you know, like using like, you know, even contrast lighting and colors and stuff, you know what I mean? So there's always a different way you can go with, you know, how you shape light, how you use light to create mood, you know, so.
And it's hard to practice that kind of stuff. You have to be on a shoot.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. Exactly.
With it.
I agree.
Is there something that you struggled with once that you now have a good handle on?
Well, I mean, you learn things along the way, you know, but like at first, you know, like being able to, you know, properly expose where my levels are and not relying on just like what I'm seeing through the camera, like using your vector scopes and you know, false color. False color has been, you know, like I don't take a light meter with me, you know. I was never taught to use a light meter, you know.
They're pretty much obsolete.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, and my false color has really helped me keep consistent from scene to scene, and that's one thing that my coworkers really pushed me to get better at, and now you see, you know, like where your exposure is, you know, and you can, you know, I honestly take a picture of it with my phone. And then I go to the next scene and I make sure that my ratios are the same, you know. So it's all about keeping those ratios the same. Then
you mean from scene to scene?
Yes, yeah.
But they could be totally different situations.
They are, but you still want to have some sort of consistency.
Really?
Yeah, you want your key light to be at a certain, you know, ratio, like 2 to 1 or so, you know. And you want to keep that consistency throughout, your entire film, regardless if you're in a different location or not. I mean, yeah, certain situations are going to pop up where that doesn't work, or that maybe it's not the right call, but there's going to be another dialogue scene where, you know what I mean, you want to keep that, or, you change your lens, you still have to keep that consistent, and different situations, maybe you want a different focal length, so, or you want, all of a sudden you want, less blur in the background, but you still got to kind of keep it consistent, so.
Yeah. One of the things that I've come to realize over these last few years, when I'm like just kind of into movies, like I don't watch that many movies either, but I'm amazed at how effective bad lighting can be. Like, like you were talking about keeping the ratios the same and stuff.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of certain scenes, like there's that like group meeting for the Dark Knight scene where they're in a ballroom. The lighting on that is shit, but it's great. You know what I mean? It's like, if I would walk into that, no way I would light it like that. That's bad lighting, and that's my problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's like my stuff. Like as a commercial photographer, I light usually to make people look good, not to like obscure their, make it look moody. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about same ratios, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe. Like for the movie, you don't want it to look good. But I know what you mean dialogue-wise. And I'm always amazed that, I keep thinking of things as we're talking here, and it's like there was just a scene that I saw where this guy was looking to the right, and the main light is from the left, and his face is in shadow, and that's something I would never light like that but it really worked.
Yeah, right.
So my next ladder step is that making bad light work kind of thing.
Sure.
But it's the ratio. Like flat light is the worst.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's okay if he's looking to, if his face is in shadow, if it works for the scene, if it conveys the message.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you about that, keeping it consistent from shot to shot, but I don't know. I'm still learning myself.
Yeah, right.
Of course, in the past, I've had light meters, right?
Yeah.
But 20 years ago, I bought a color meter.
Okay.
I still use it almost every shoot.
Do you really?
Oh my God, yes. Okay, so what I do is, like, say I'm doing environmental portraits, which is the same thing as doing movies, right? You go into a situation and you have to adapt to it.
Yeah.
Okay? So I want to add lights, right? But I want the lights to match these lights.
Uh-huh.
So what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll take a meter reading, and it gets me close. It doesn't like nail it down because, you could hold it to the left.
Right,
and
different
it'll
angle,
change.
and it's still going to pick up a little bit of a different color.
And then what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll put filters on my lights, which are, they're daylight, 6,000 K.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll try to match that as best I can.
Yeah.
And that gets me going. So I use that light all the time, taking environmental portraits. And I just thought that, that's probably something you'd find more use to. I mean, it'll get you, like, grading wise, you can kind of tweak that, yes. But if you're going to add lights, those lights need to be where you want them.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do that visually. I have some quasar Sidens bulbs. You know what they are?
No.
I'll show them to you afterwards. But basically, they're fluorescent tubes, but they're bicolor fluorescent tubes. And
are those the ones we used in Jesse's doorway?
Yeah.
We hung them up above the.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
No, I actually been wanting to get a set of those ever since then. I sent them to my executive producer at work and was like, "Hey, these came in really handy." I said we should get a couple of these. He said, "Okay," but
make sure when you get that.
Okay.
We use the 4-foot, but the 2-foot, I think, for video stuff is almost more useful because you can fit that in closets. And
right. Yeah, because we have the old Kino flows, and when you just either have the daylight or the tungsten, and then you have to change them out, and it's like a bank of 4, and they're stuck together, and sometimes I slide one in somewhere, but you could rip them apart, but it's kind of a pain. I'd love to have a set of those,
What are some of the bigger filmmaking mistakes that you've made?
I guess the biggest mistakes would just be, well, like I said, one, trying to wear too many hats, I guess, not realizing what your shortcomings are and getting in a little bit over your head, I guess. Just trying to do it all myself, I guess, in the earlier times, but I didn't really have a network of people, so I guess not networking would be, one of the biggest shortcomings.
That's actually one of the reasons why you're here today is like, I think this podcast thing could really help that out. Maybe people didn't know about you. Maybe you can help on other projects, or you can find people from other podcasts that I do that I bet he'd be perfect for this. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Kind of thing. So I'm hoping that works out.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's one of the things that I've come to love about, just doing the 48-hour film, and they have those meet and greets and stuff like that. I don't always make it to them, but I've started to notice the other people, and then like when you become friends with somebody on Facebook, you see all the common people that you are friends with, and you're like, we're all in the same network, even, and then there's some people that I haven't worked with yet that I can't wait to, so.
Have you ever gone to any of those crew connects?
No, I don't,
Do you know about them?
I see them, they pop up, but like I said, I got my hands in so many different things that it's hard for me to get away right now. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
and I plan to continue filmmaking, for the next, 20 years or so, so I'll make it to one someday, but
you have that damn kid to take care of. Huh?
I know, he keeps me busy with his YouTube stuff and all his activities and sports and stuff.
Right. So what do you like best about filmmaking?
Just the creative process involved with it. I just like creating, whether, if you're, a fine arts, if you're into the fine arts and you draw or you paint or you do whatever, I just like the creative process and the storytelling, so it's like I said, I get a little bit bored with still photography because, there's a story in your photo, but like you mentioned it, like, composition wise, maybe that's not my strong game, but like I like to be able to put something together, like I could go through your phone right now and take your videos and make a little tiny story out of it. You know what I mean? Like I probably could, what I mean? Might not make the most sense or the most interesting story, but there's a story there. You know what I mean? So just being able to, use your creativity to tell a story and entertain, I guess, just
cool.
to bring something to life.
Huh. What do you like least about the filmmaking?
It's a time suck. I don't have enough time in the day. I don't sleep a lot. I only sleep a couple hours a night really, because I work on, freelance stuff at home. I wait till my family goes to bed and I stay up and I'll be editing or doing design work. You know what I mean? So I just, not having enough time to be able to do all the things I want to do. If it was up to me, if our bodies didn't require sleep, I think it's a waste of time, so because I would rather be out there creating,
If you could give some advice to a new filmmaker, just kind of becoming a filmmaker, what advice would you give them?
Get on as many sets as you can, volunteer even, like you said, and this might be me being a black kettle, because, I don't do it enough, but, volunteer, go to these crew connects probably, you know what I mean? But just learn from people that have already been there and done it, just get involved, like at the beginning, I didn't really know, anything about filmmaking. I knew how to work a camera and I knew how to use editing software, but I didn't know how to make a film. But I just did it. So just get started, like if you have an idea. I see some people on the Pittsburgh Filmmakers Facebook page, and sometimes I get irritated because there's a lot of professionals that are on there that they kind of talk down to some of these newbies. You know what I mean? And I find that irritating because it would be discouraging to me to start out now. And I don't speak up much on that Facebook group because I just see people laying into other people. There almost needs to be a separate group for complete newbies, but then how are they connecting with the people that can teach them, Right.
I experienced that. It's like I went out on a couple of the pages and said, hey, I'm just looking to work, and it's like you get some professionals say, you're working for free, you're taking money out of my kids' mouths.
Right.
And it's like, I always thought that, I'm in it for the reps, you know what I mean? Like I need to build a skill set. So it's better than paying to go to school for it.
Sure.
You know? So that's it. Well, that's about it. I really appreciate you spending all this time here with me, and it's going to be a bitch to edit all this down.
I apologize for that. Yeah, sorry. I have a tendency to ramble a little bit. But I appreciate you bringing me in, and it's always fun to work with you, and this is something new to me. I've never done a podcast before, so and just an experience that, like, really talking. It gave me a chance to, like, kind of evaluate myself here, just, with some of these questions you threw at me, So it's been fun, and I enjoy it, and I wish you luck. And if you need any help with editing this down, let me know.
Oh,
or any suggestions.
You heard of people. He's good. He's volunteered. Okay, if people want to reach you, how do they do it?
Yeah, Facebook would probably be the best way. That's probably where I'm networked the most with a lot of the filmmakers, and some of them I haven't even met yet. I've just I've seen their name pop up, some makeup artists, and I've just given them a like, because you never know who you're going to need to reach out to next. And the company I work for, we hire a lot of people. We'll get a camera assistant or a sound guy or a makeup guy, you know what I mean? So, you always just are looking, in availability. Sometimes we'll pop up and we'll need to shoot, tomorrow. So It's like, it's always good to have, a network of people that, you see, I see their work and I like it. I'll, send them a friend request. I know I haven't met you. It might be weird, but, hey, maybe we'll work together soon.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And, I'll see you at the next shoot.
Hey, sounds good. Thank you.
Take care. Okay, everybody, thanks for listening. If you found us on our webpage, please leave a comment and let us know what you think. If you found us on iTunes or Spotify and you like the show, please leave a rating or a review. And whatever you do, hit the subscribe button. Thanks again, and we'll be here next week with another episode.